Hello everyone. It's time to start our lab. Now this lab will cover the operations we've learned so far, and I will be throwing in a couple of new things to boot to help us get where we want to be with our model. Now at the end we'll have a nice environment model, we'll have a good render for our portfolio, and we'll have a saved file that we can continue on later in the training. What will we be building, you ask? We're going to put together a small environment for the animation portion of this course later on. It'll be a small seaside home with a bridge. But enough talk, let's get to modeling. As you can see, I've deleted my default cube, and I'm going to go ahead and add in a plane. I'll swing over to approximate my front view, and I'll tab into edit mode. I'll hit A to deselect everything, and B to box select my rear vertices and delete them. Great, now we'll have a line to work with in our front view. Before we go there, let's hit Control S, bring up our save menu, and let's save this file as bridge or something like that. You can use whatever you like. Excuse me. I'm fighting off the flu, so I have to have something to drink while we do this. Alright, we'll also go to the outline editor and double click on plane and go ahead and rename it to bridge. You're probably going to catch me forgetting to name things quite a few times, but I will try to be good. It's one of the places I fall down a lot. Alright, we'll go ahead and switch to our front view, 1, and into orthographic mode, 5. I want to pull each of my vertices out about 10 units from center. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, just close. Remember, if it looks right, then it is right. Alright, once that's done, I'm going to take my left vertex, and I'm going to hit E, and then Z, and then I'll hit 6 and Enter to extrude a new vertex 6 units above. Then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other end. Alright, great. Let's make sure both of our top vertices are selected, and then hit F to fill those with a new line, so that we have a nice box. Now, let's hit W and subdivide that new line. On the left, we can push our number of cuts up to the max of 10. Alright, that's not quite enough. So let's hit W again and perform one more subdivide to double up our vertices. That should do. Alright, let's select the center vertex. I'm going to hit O to turn on my proportional editing. Now I'll hit G so that I can grab it and see how big the proportional area is. You can use your scroll wheel to enlarge or decrease it. I want my selection area to be just inside the outer edges of my line. Alright, I'm going to hit Z to lock my axis, and then just move that single vertex up to get a really nice curve. Mine's about 2.5 units, but you can set yours wherever you like. Whatever you think looks good. Alright, next we'll hit A to deselect, and then we'll select our bottom 2 verts. We'll hit W to subdivide again, and this time we'll create 7 cuts. Okay, let's hit Control Tab and switch to Edge mode. Starting from the left, we'll select the second edge, and holding Shift, we'll also select the middle 2 edges, as well as the edge that's second from the end. It can be hard to see, so if you have a little trial and error, don't worry about it. Once I have them selected, I'm going to go ahead and hit X being sure to delete edges only, as we want to leave our vertices intact. I'll also hit O again to turn off proportional editing. Alright, now let's grab our vertex on the left empty area that we just created. Now let's extrude that vertex somewhere around a unit at a time until we've created an arch. Take your time, and the arch doesn't have to be perfect, but we do want to have a fairly even distance between the vertices that we create. You'll see why in a little bit. Now, like our top line, we can select the two vertices when we finish making our arch and just hit F to complete the arch. Now it's just a matter of moving individual vertices until we get a nice curve that we're happy with. If you really can't get a great curve, we could grab all the vertices or just a couple and we could subdivide them again. But if you've kept to about one unit at a time, I don't think we should need to do that. And we never want to add more geometry if we don't need to. Now, it would be nice if our opposite arch were at least close to the same. So, instead of all the work of extruding all that out and trying to get it to look just like the other one, I'm going to hit A and deselect everything, and then B, and I'm going to box select all of my new vertices that I created. Now, let's hit Shift D to duplicate, and X to slide that duplication along the axis till it's sitting right over our other small empty spot. Now, we can just select the appropriate vertices on each side, and we can use F to finish out our arch. And they look pretty much identical. Alright, now I'll pause the recording while we finish the large arch in the same fashion, so that we end up with two small and then one large arch in the center. Okay, we should have something like this nice little bridge outlined now. Now is a great time to double check any extrusions that you're worried about. Remember, if you do an extrusion and then decide that you didn't want to, you may right-click to back out, but in the case of extrusions, Blender is still making one, it's just not moving it anywhere, and you've got two vertices on top of each other. So if you're worried that that happened to you, just make sure that your limit selection to visible is turned off, and then go ahead and box select the vertices you're worried about. You can look up at the top and see if there's more than one vertex selected. If there are, then all we have to do is hit Ctrl V and be sure to remove any doubles before we go forward. Otherwise, when we do some extrusion later, we could really have some problems. So, if you do have any concerns about that, make sure you check those vertices and get those welded back together. Alright, our camera and light are kind of in the way at the moment. So let's tab into Object Mode and select both of those. I'll hit M and bring up my Layers palette and move them to the last layer just to get them out of the way until we need them. Great. Now, let's select our bridge, go back into Edit Mode, and then select all of our vertices. Now we'll click F to fill them. Alright, looking like a bridge. Now, let's hit 3 and move to our right view. I'm going to move my mesh to the left until I'm about 4 units from center. Now, I'll hit E for extrude and Y to lock the axis, and I'll pull my extrusion out until I'm about 4 units right of center. Great. Now, let's hit our Loop, Cut, and Slide tool over in our Transform panel and create a cut, and then move it over until it's about 1 unit from the left. Then let's repeat that operation and create one that's over on the right. Alright, now we'll make sure our limit selection is on because we don't want to be able to select through geometry at this point. I'm going to hit Control Tab and select Faces. I'll rotate a bit so that I get a better view. I'll select an end face here, and holding Control, I'll select the face at the opposite end, which will grab that entire line of faces. Now I'll let go of Control and hold Shift and select an end face on the other side. Then I'll go back to holding Control to select the entire line on that side. Great. Now we can go back to our right view, number 3. We'll hit E to extrude and Z to lock the axis. Now we can pull our railing up about 1 unit. That's not a very tall railing, but in this case, bear with me, because we'll be adding some stuff to this that'll make it work out. Alright, great. Let's tab into Object Mode, and let's go over to our Modifier panel, you know, the one that looks like a wrench, and select Edge Split. Then, let's apply a smoothing operation in our Transform panel and smooth out our mesh. Now, we have a great start to our bridge. Alright, in the next video, we'll learn a new operation to help us add detail, and we'll put the finishing touches on our bridge object before we move on. I'll see you there.